we've spoken to you a number of times before, and the fact that you're 84 years old and you've just written another book.
How many books is this, George, now?
Well, this is my 6th book, and I'm about to start a 7th, but it's based on fiction. I've invented a detective, so I'm going to get into the fiction, if I can do it. It's very difficult, though.
So can you tell us a little bit about this book that you've just written?
Yes, I'll hold up the cover for you. It's called The Stealth Bomber, and the front cover says, Attacking Men's Mental Health and Wellbeing. Mental health problems come out of nowhere. That's the problem. And it's knowledge and strategies for men in life, business and sport to help their mental health and wellbeing in high-performance, stressful environments. Now, the foreword has been absolutely brilliantly written. I'm very humbled by AFL Hawthorn great Peter Swab, who is also the director of umpiring and in the AFL and senior coach at Hawthorn for a long while. It's quite humbling, but I'm quite flattered. I realised there was a story I'll tell you which made me realise 2 years ago, roughly, because it took me about 18 months or 2 years to write it, that men's mental health comes to men like a stealth bomber. They don't know it's arriving. It's unseen. It arrives, okay? And it's a big problem in the world at the moment because men they're not easily able to talk to others about it. They seem to protect themselves, and so I did a lot of research on that. But let me tell you a story. I was asked, this is what set me off to write it. I was asked some years ago now, back in 1985 really, that a friend of mine's husband, she said, had some problems and would I help him? And I said, yeah, what sort of problems? Oh, she said he's depressed and down in the dumps and not motivated and worrying and, he's quite concerned. And this is before the words mental health actually became a global phrase. So I said, okay, I'd see him. So we'll call him Bill. So I saw Bill and he came in and I said, have a coffee. And at the time I was going through issues he had no idea of. So I said to him, so how's things, Bill? Jill says you're going through some issues. Oh, yes, he said, I'm not happy. I'm down the dumps and blah, blah, blah. And he went on and I suppose wailed a bit. And I said, well, look, let me ask you some questions. Do you still have your business? He said, yes. I said, are you still married? Yes. Are your children still with you? Yes. I said, is your business going okay? Yes. Do you still own your car? Yes. Do you still have your superannuation? Yes. I said, that's interesting. Well, let me tell you about a guy I know who lost his wife, his business, his children, his superannuation, his savings, his house, his building and his business all in 1 month. He said, my goodness, is he dead? I said, no, you're looking at him. That revved him up so much. He broke down in front of me. He realised he had nothing to worry about, but it helped him to pull himself up by his bootstraps. And he went on. They actually moved to Queensland, and he became the highest performing financial advisor in the southeast of Queensland. And that's a story I'm really proud of, but it told me a lot about men, that they worry often about nothing. Unless they've got support around them, they can actually fall into an abyss and start to worry, shy at shadows, if you want to call it like that. Unless they've got support around them and male support and they're open to talking, they fall into trouble. So he had no one really to talk to except me. So that opened my eyes quite a bit. And in fact, men, and it's part of what I've written in my book, part of the issue is that, and I'll just refer to my book, part of the reason, or the reason the book is dedicated to men's mental health, is that research shows that males, unlike females, are more loath to ask for help, believing they will be judged as weak and a failure in life, business and sport if they ask for help. Now, it's interesting research. This attitude can be traced way back to the caveman era, where the male was the hunter and brought back the food for the female, who was called the gatherer. It was looking after the home, whatever the home looked like, and children. And this was the creation of the male being perceived as the hunter or the breadwinner, and as such being seen to be accountable and responsible for the livelihood of the family. Now, that's not right or wrong, it just is. It's not sexist, it just is. The sense of pride and responsibility, wrongly or rightly, self-permeates through life today, and it's difficult for males. And there's a reason why males are loath to be seen to be asking for help. For if they do, they will perceive themselves to be weak, vulnerable, and a failure in life. Now, the paradigm, John and Mark, unfortunately is being handed down from generation to generation by fathers and grandparents, meaning well but not realising the ramifications of their actions. Now, in the research that I then investigated, it's interesting that in an AICD magazine in November 2022 by Deloitte and Workplace Intelligence into Workplace Wellbeing, it showed that, this is amazing, some of these statistics, more than 40% of senior leaders are stressed, 36% are exhausted, and almost 70% are considering quitting. While high performance earn many leaders their senior role, the skills that help them climb the ladder may not guarantee them success at the top. They find they're alone. It's a challenge. They can't talk to their direct reports about how they're feeling personally or how they may be struggling in their role. So they get lonely. It's the saying, lonely at the top, I guess. So the executive coach, corporate coach, has therefore in many cases become a professional sounding board, confidant, and even a magic mirror on the wall, whose skills have seen a rise in demand. In fact, leaders are dealing with the impact of COVID-19 still, and performance challenges, hybrid work arrangements, and significant staff shortages. Interesting, executive coaching grew 33% globally from 2015 to 2019 as demand for coaches and mentors, as professional listeners and advisors became more critical for senior leaders. Now, another issue here is that in the same magazine in July, it states that many small and medium businesses this is quite sad really, a report from Treasury states that many small and medium business owners have faced high stress periods for a long time before and since COVID-19, and many lack the knowledge, self-awareness and confidence to seek assistance when they need it. Mental health problems are often shown as depression, anxiety and irritability, and these issues can affect decision-making, productivity, leadership, personal relationships, especially with spouse, staff and friends, and also affects sleep and appetite. So they found that the survey found that mental health was a major issue for SMEs, which represent 97% of the businesses in Australia, I might add, and which employ around 60% of the workforce and deliver about 33% of private sector productivity. The report shows that SMEs face mental barriers in gaining mental health support and lack the strategies to maintain their mental health in life and business. It was also reported that 31% of SME owners consider mental health an immediate concern, yet 30% find it difficult to discuss. The report stated that 1 in 5 of the 1,000 people interviewed stated they had experienced depression in the past 12 months, 44% had experienced anxiety, 55% felt responsible for the mental health and wellbeing of their staff, and 61 thought they could do more relaxing. The bottom line showed that there was a lack of understanding among business owners especially, that ultimately their energy and mental health will affect their business and by extension their family, friends, unless they take ownership of the issue and take action to get support from experienced, qualified people. Resilience, it was noted, is a necessary and critical personal trait, an important ingredient in overcoming mental health issues. One of the issues that's crept in, finally, interestingly enough, to sport. Many people don't know about this. I heard Chris Fagan talk about this after the grand final with Brisbane and Geelong when he was interviewed on Monday night on Fox. It's called imposter syndrome. Many CEOs, many AFL footballers are being promoted beyond a level where they get enormous salaries, but deep down, it's interesting, Mark, deep down they don't think they're worthy of it. I won't name names, but there's a previous footballer who was on a $10 million contract. He forfeited the last $5 million. He didn't want it because he couldn't handle the pressure of not being able to perform to that standard and getting ridiculed by supporters, et cetera, the media. There's others more currently that can't play because they don't feel they're worthy. So paying people all this money, CEOs as well, Mark and John, are getting crazy money. Like yesterday, 2 CEOs are going to be paid $7.8 million each. They're going to have trouble. That's why there's a turnover of CEOs that don't last long, because deep down, they're not saying this, but deep down they don't think their self-worth is worth that. So they feel inadequate, they feel guilty, and there's 5 types without going through the lot. There's called the perfectionist, the superhuman, the natural genius, the soloist, the expert. Men with imposter syndrome often believe that coaching and mentoring will make them vulnerable and transparent, and therefore can deny themselves the opportunity of achieving their full potential. So many of these top people are hiding. And one of the issues that's, if I can just sort of finish this part, if that's probably the way to sum it up, is there's an issue at the moment with the media. It's massive. Much of the news is not news anymore. It's sensational reporting to fill time and space for advertising. Many people are now turning it off. I know I don't watch it anymore at all. It's fake news in many places. AI is being used to write. I even talked to a senior journalist from Channel 9 from some years ago, who was Bob Hawke's press secretary. He used to be on Channel 9. He's lost his friends. How about that? He can't talk to his friends because most of the news is being written by AI, and he doesn't see their authenticity anymore. So he's finding it hard to handle. So it's interesting. In 1976, in the film Network, Howard Beale, the newscaster, yelled out, and it was played by Peter Finch, you might recall, and he yelled out, "I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." Well, I know people are turning off the news in droves and only living in a bubble, very selectively watching their phone with digital headlines, and not subjecting their family and children to machete attacks and home burglaries and whatever, which they can't stop anyway. So it's being polluted. The male, especially, being perceived by himself to be the breadwinner, is now under attack. And in fact, it goes a bit further. It's a bit of fun, I suppose, but it goes a bit further because if you remember years ago, men were, and it's still happening, men are perceived to be the hunter to find the woman of their dreams, okay? So they have to do all the pursuing and often are rejected quite badly, and they have to cope with that. And that's not even being discussed. There are records out, and I can say these because they're fact. 10cc I'm Not in Love includes lyrics, "Big boys don't cry," and it goes on and on and on. Well, that's so bad, but they're still playing it. Bruno Mars's song Grenade, he sings the lyrics, "I'll stand in front of a train for you." Can you believe that? That's true, and they're allowing that to go to air. Now, these lyrics are not helping men's mental health. So what I've tried to do is come up with some ways to help them, and one of the things is a paradigm of the iceberg that the Titanic hit. You see, the Titanic didn't sink because of what it saw and because of what it hit above the water. It sank because the iceberg, 7/8 of the iceberg under the water, cut it open and it sank. So what we've got to do to help men's mental health is not attack what's happening, but why. And why is under the water? What is above the water? Why is under it? So unless anyone, men especially, look at themselves in the mirror and see, why is this happening to me? You can't fix it. So part of the book then goes on with the manual, and I'll discuss that in some issues if you'd like to ask me some questions.
Yeah, I suppose the why. So what would be some of the examples of the why that you in your research, George, that you saw and that you needed to address?
Okay, well, some of the reasons are pretty basic, to be quite frank. A lot of the problems are to do with their upbringing. You see, me included, we're told when we're kids, when we're children, to shut up and stay, not perhaps shut up, be quiet, stay in the corner, speak when you're spoken to. And very few parents, and now it's getting worse because they're both working, very few parents are saying, well done. Very few parents are giving the boundaries to children. That's hence there's graffiti everywhere, machetes, et cetera, et cetera. Very few parents are home all the time. Very few parents are bringing up their children in preschool. They're at preschool places, right? Childcare centres. So it's unfortunately becoming a bit of an epidemic because therefore the root causes you ask are hidden. So one of the biggest root causes is the lack of self-worth, the lack of self-esteem, the lack of confidence. And then you can have a laugh at this if you like. Jim's mowing, in fact, and hire a hubby, do everything now. So a male is being eroded or attacked for the first time in their life by not being needed. So a female can even have a child now by going to hospital and having artificial insemination, right? So a male is starting to see worldwide that their value and their position in life, business, in sport, especially in business, females are taking over a lot of men's jobs. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying they are. And so males are now becoming what they're not biologically designed to be. Many of them are becoming house hubbies and the wife's going off to work. In fact, doing a good job, I might add. That's not the point. So a lot of men's perceived position in life as the breadwinner, which comes from the caveman era, is being eroded. So that's part of the issue. In fact, I know in some associations, for instance, Mark, good question, there's quotas now for females to be CEOs. It doesn't matter how good they are or they're not, there's quotas. I've actually cancelled my membership of some because of this, because I see that the male's self-worth and position being eroded. Now, the male can't have children, the female can. Biologically, that's a fact, right? We can debate that till the cows come home. But that's a fact. So the males are now being forced in the world to being forced to perform a role they're not designed for naturally, and females are. So it's a real big issue because the men are confused. A lot of men are confused. I'm hearing this from many, many female people even tonight, before I came on with you, with some friends, saying exactly that. They're confused. They don't know what to do. Their identity is being eroded. And so it's out there, and it's currently being attacked like never before. So what comes with that, the research I told you earlier, is part of the problem. So men are loath to be seen to be asking for help. So that's one of the biggest problems, because they perceive they're not supposed to. So one of the things we've got to do as parents is we've got to be helping their self-worth more. That's my opinion. We've got to be, my mother, God love her, I loved her dearly, started to tell me at about 70 that she loved me. Now, that's not to say she didn't, but I never heard that. Then she realised as she was in her final years, right? And then it got to 80, she told me more and more. You can have a laugh at this. Then she got confused and thought I was my brother. But anyway, that doesn't matter. So she'd say, John, I really love her. Say, Mum, my name's George, and how you going? We had a laugh. The role of the grandparents and the role of especially see in Asia and in America, in Asia, the grandparents live with the daughter and son-in-law, or the son and the daughter-in-law, and they are the school of the air. They educate their children in how to be parents. But the Western world, especially Australia, they put them in nursing homes. We get rid of them, right? No good. As soon as you're 65, you're old and slow moving, if you like, as a product. You like that, Mark? But
Thank you.
You're a lost leader. See, you're a lost leader. We go into marketing terms. So they put you in a nursing home because you're not worth two bob. In fact, there's a big issue in Australia, and you would know this from your research, I'm sure, of the aged person of 60, 65 not being able to get a job, yet they have wisdom beyond their years. So why is this happening? And it's eroding men's mental health, because a lot of men who've been in your positions, I know John and Mark, you've had senior positions, I know that very well. Well, I see them sitting on husband chairs at shopping centres while their wives are going off enjoying their shopping adventure with their girlfriends. Now, these guys may have had a cross-section in life from CEO to Boilermaker. It doesn't matter. They're now nothing, and they become puppy dogs sitting on a chair. So one of the big issues, John, you've opened Pandora's box with your question, and Mark, brilliant, is males need a project to allow them to increase their mental health and their well-being especially. So let me just run something past you for a minute. So the bottom level of Maslow's hierarchy is physiological, to survive and stay alive. And if you're down there, you're in deep trouble. You're very angry and anxiety is high. And that's newborn babies and people in nursing homes and people that have been retrenched without a parachute, okay? Nothing to come back to. The second level when you go up is security, to feel physically and emotionally safe in the present and in the future. But that comes with work and save. Funnily enough, that's all you do, go to work, go home, go to work, come home. You're still suffering some anxiety because there's no recognition. Level 3 is social recognition, to join in and belong to groups, communicate and talk. Now, as soon as you hit level 3, your well-being starts to kick in. Level 4 is really interesting and it comes back to your question mark. Level 4 is self-esteem, and the way he researched that was to respect oneself first and receive respect from others second, not get respect from others first so you respect yourself. So if that's how you're thinking, by wanting respect from others so you respect yourself, you've already got a mental health problem. And the behaviour in that is interesting, and that's to display one's abilities, skills, knowledge and experience. So that's what's slipping down in the workforce. They're not wanting the knowledge and experience. They're wanting to display your abilities and skills, many from university or wherever, but they haven't got the wisdom you, me, John have got. So they're missing out on the wisdom to mentor people. And so when you get to level 4, you go up higher in your mental health wellness and well-being. And level 5 during COVID, massive. This is what the male needs to have. Level 5 is self-actualization to achieve your full potential. And your behaviour pattern is really interesting. It's imagine, create, and be self-motivated. And when you achieve that level, you're at your best level of well-being and your mental health is the highest possible. So me writing books, coming back to the start of our discussion, is a project I love, and it keeps me active and mentally, I call it mental gymnastics at 84, 85 in November. So they call me Georgie Boy at Yarra, my golf club. Georgie Boy. Can you believe that? And a month ago, I got 2 new clients. I didn't get them, referred to me. Why? No risk. In other words, when you get referrals, they know there's no risk. If I'm going to be involved with people, they don't want any risk involved. So I've worked out, and part of the book is about that males especially, this might sound sexist, it's certainly not. Males especially seem to be more attuned to needing a project like painting, building something for their grandchildren, mentoring some people, being a corporate coach, using their background and the experience and knowledge and experience that John and you and Mark have both got, or building something for an aged care shelter, learning painting, I've got friend 88 learning new languages. One guy, 81, I know, he's just helped Tim Wilson to win the only seat in the federal election for that was held by the Teals. He's doing all that, right? So you really need a project. So many men who retire, and I'll sort of finish on this point to your question. Many men who retire don't have a project. In fact, I know some accounting top 4 companies, I won't name them, who ask me to help them with their partners who they may leave at 55 and 60. Can you believe I've just said that? Well, the best age in the world for people with wisdom and experience is 55 to 60. So, and they kick them out. See, they don't know. That's a big saying I use a lot. You've heard that. They don't know what they're doing. So I said to this firm, top 4 in Australia, what do you do to help these people? Why did you want to talk to me? And they say, they find they go home and their marriages break up. I say, you're kidding. No, because all of a sudden the male, especially the male, and it's predominantly in the accounting industry, the older ones go under and get under the feet of their wife. They get into her space. They invade her space. They say, what are we doing today, darling? She says, I'm going out with my girlfriends. They say, well, what am I going to do? So in other words, if they haven't got a plan, they're like a lonely island. So I said, what do you do to help them? Oh, we have a seminar 6 months before they leave. What? A seminar? I said, what happens after the seminar? Nothing. Why? You see, so part of the problem here we've got, and this might sound a bit weird or deep, is most accounting and law firms, but especially I'll stay with the accounting profession, they're lovely people. You want them for your son and your grandfather and your husband, right? No problem. But they're left brain, task orientated people who are not right brain, soft skill, people orientated. So they find it difficult to have relationships. They find that they're low in empathy, they're low in self-awareness, they're low in social skills often. I know accountants that won't carry business cards. They're scared to give them out and talk to people. It's crazy stuff, but that's how they're wired in their profession. That's how they're wired from birth. So part of the problem is they leave, they retire, and unless they've got a project to motivate them or inspire them or engage them in, they slip down the slippery slope. And many people who retire without, and I know you two haven't done this, you're smart enough to not do it, but many senior execs and people just generally in life, business and sport who retire, footballers are just the same. Often they retire, they've got nothing to do. They don't know what to do. In fact, it's a big problem, the AFL Coaches Association, where the people are retiring or getting sacked and they don't know what to do. They're critical in life. So unless they've got a plan and a project, they slip down the slippery slope. And I know many have got sick, many have died prematurely because all I can think of is the endorphins in the brain turn off because they're not using them. And it's interesting when you got too much time to think, guys. You ever had it? When you're by yourself, there's too much time to think. And when there's too much time to think, you start to get depressed. And when you get depressed, you get anxious. And you get anxious because anxiety kicks in when you lose control of your future. And that's what happened in COVID. So you lose control of your future. You're not making the decisions. So people got anxiety attacks. And the part of the key point, which I mentioned in my preamble to the book, is you need large helpings of resilience. Now, unfortunately, my daughter, who's a doctor of psychology, she and I had to do some work, and we both found out when we had to help a couple of clients after COVID that the people we were trying to help and talk to had never, ever experienced any major war, financial problem, pandemic. Many hadn't experienced anything. And as a result, they weren't able to flex their resilience muscles. They were letting the world wash over them, and they didn't have the skill set to enable them to cope. So what I've tried to write in the book is to incorporate a lot of my manual I use when I coach people to help them, with these skills. So does that give you an overview of the book?
Oh, it does. I'll tell you what, it makes you really want to just run out and get a copy of that book, George, because that covers so much of what the world is experiencing today in so many ways. Dealing with the whole COVID wash through, the pre-COVID, post-COVID, but also the input from social media and the cultural shift that we've had, but also recognizing there's the biological fundamentals that go back to caveman days that are still very, very real emotions that are in the two sexes, which are just programmed that way. Yes, correct. There's all the pronouns and all that sort of stuff, but fundamentally there's the hardwiring synaptic pathways that are just there, and you've got to deal with them. And as you say, the stealth bomber can creep up very quickly without realising. And if you don't have that project and you don't have that support network and you're not prepared to ask for help, individuals can get in a lot of trouble, male and female.
Oh, totally. But yeah, both sexes. I'm not saying that females don't.
Absolutely. So no, I think I can't wait to get a copy of the book, George. So definitely keen for that catch up so we can go through it. John, have you got any other questions for George?
No, I think, George, you make such a good point there. And it's crazy that companies let people go. We work for a company that once person got to 58 years old, they cleared them out.
There's a lot of companies, John, like that. You hit 55 in public service, you're gone.
Yeah, and these guys have such tremendous experience and coaching skills and mentoring skills that they can help develop those young managers come up through the system. So you get rid of these guys, the guys going into roles who probably are a little bit too early to be in that role. And it cost them far more money than just having this whole ecosystem of developing people all the way through. It was quite interesting for me because working in the Nordics, if you try and retrench someone who's like 60 years old, the cost to do that is so big that very few companies will actually do it. And when we moved to the Nordics, we had to set this company up, and we took over 3 or 4 companies which we amalgamated. And in those companies, there were 4 or 5 guys that were over 60, and to retrench them would have cost us too much money. So it was actually far better for us to work with the guys till they reached 65, which was retirement age. So no one wanted them in the department. So for some reason, they said, oh, they need to come work in my department. So I inherited these guys, and they were totally amazing. They had so much experience. Yep. They knew they had all the contacts. We achieved so much just by using these guys and listening to them and getting their guidance, because I was quite a young guy. You know, I was early 40s at the time.
You still are, John.
Yeah, still mentally I'm about 40. So what was interesting for me, eventually then all the other directors were trying to steal these guys off my department. Yeah. And I'd have to fight for them and say, no, sorry, you can't have these guys on mine. They work for me. And it was amazing. So I just can't believe companies actually do that.
So you've got to ask your question, why Julius Sumner Miller, that dates me. Why is it so? Okay. Well, I can only come back to that many young people who've only been to uni and haven't had, this might sound pretty terrible, but I don't mean it like this, haven't had any real world business experience, are threatened by us. They really are. We've got knowledge and experience. We've been enabled, equipped because of our experience and background to know a lot of things about business. And they haven't. Often the accountants who are primed to be the managing partner don't want to be it. So the managing partners are often those still left standing at the front, and the others take a step backwards. They haven't got the right brain people skills to do the job. They call it the Peter principle, where you get promoted beyond your level of competence to incompetence. So the accounting fraternity worldwide, I can tell you, it's rife with this problem. And the managing partners are now, as you rightly said just then, Mark, they now lose the ability to service their client base like they used to. Secondly, they now haven't got the skills that they're not equipped to be able to motivate, inspire and lead, which means, you're ready for this word, leadership is working on the business, managing is working in the business. And they see working on the business as a cost, not an investment, so they don't work on it. They love working in it. They're practitioners. They love doing stuff. So you haven't got a leader.
That's amazing.
They have no idea. They love playing with their accounts.
George, thank you so much for today. That was a really fantastic intro to your book, and I think the book is going to be a fantastic read. And I really encourage as many of our listeners to get a copy of it and reach out to you to get a copy of it, because that is a very real world and topical issue right now that actually takes lives. And that's the sad part. That's the sad truth about it. Mental health takes lives. It kills more people than cancer. It is a very serious illness. And what you're doing and your contribution to assist that is fantastic. So we definitely appreciate you coming on the show.
John and Mark, I was very fortunate before you go to have a person put me up to be a radio presenter for 10 years on radio called The Life Coach. Now, to do that, very quickly, I had to research a heck of a lot. I wrote 1,500 programs for radio, and that set me off with the background and the root cause, if you like you just said. It's an epidemic. This is the problem. It's an epidemic. Pandemic was an epidemic of respiratory. Men's mental health is an epidemic of men's longevity.
Absolutely.
And it's really scary.
Absolutely.
And so we need more men to stand up and say, I need help. I'm over here. Can you come and talk to me? And many times, Mark, you don't have to give them advice. The form of help is to listen. Let them download. I have people You might recall in years gone by at your firm, I had people downloading to me for an hour and a half. Often I wouldn't give them any advice because they just wanted to get it off their chest. So a lot of people, the higher you go in business, the less your people you got to talk to, and so you bottle it up inside and you get sick.